We're going to be talking about a basic overview of the verb tense system in English. So tenses tell us how an action relates to the flow of time. So verbs are words that express an action or state of being. Today we are going to discuss how verbs are used in sentences to mean different things and how to use them correctly. The ACT will test two big errors: verbs in the wrong tense and verbs that do not match their subject, so we want to focus on that. So some of our objectives today is we want to be able to classify different tenses of verbs, determine whether the subject and verb of a sentence are in agreement, compose sentences using appropriate verb tense and subject-verb agreement, and understand how subject-verb agreement is tested on the ACT. So these are our verb tenses we're going to be looking at today, an overview of them. We're going to be going more specific in a little while, but basically there are three main verb tenses in English: present, past, and future. The present, past, and future tenses are divided into four aspects: the simple, progressive, perfect, and perfect progressive. Progressive meaning continuous as well. That's the form down there at the bottom. Overall, there are actually 12 major verb tenses in English that everybody should know, but for the ACT, these are the most important ones. English has only two forms of forming a tense from the verb alone: the past and the present. For example, we drove and we drive. To form other verb tenses, you have to add a form of have, be, or will in front of the verb. These are called helping or auxiliary verbs, and when I say to be, or the be verb, that just basically means is that had or have is a to be type of form. And I know that sounds kind of complicated. It is true that verbs can be difficult for any language learner to know, but we will break them down into an easier way to understand. So for the simple tense, here's our example. On the timeline, we're going to be looking at lots of timelines today. A past simple tense always comes in the form of ed, or whether it's plural or singular, it always ends in ed. It does not matter your base form. So if it's an action completed in the past or a past state of being, as it is on this timeline, it is going to add an ed at the end. So for example, Ken walked to school. Walk is our base form of the verb, and we add an ed, whether it is singular or plural. When we're looking at the present form of simple tense, we are always going to add a form of es at the end. So repeated action, state of being, or generalizations come in this form. But this can also be in the form of nothing, or just with an s at the end, if depending on the type of form it is, depending on its verb type. So Ken walks to school every day, we're adding the s at the end. That is a form of es, we just dropped the e, so that's why the s is here. Ken is smart is just a plain generalization, so we don't really add anything besides is. When we're looking at simple tense of the future, it's an action or a state of being that will happen in the future. So if you look at our timeline, it's happening here in the future. So we always add a will. No, it doesn't matter if it's singular or plural again. And we add that before the base form. So Ken will walk to school tomorrow. Will being in front of the base form of the verb. Then we're going to go into perfect tense. Perfect tense in the past, we add an had. So an action occurred before another event in the past is basically what's happening here. As you can see, there's two X's, something happening before. So Julie had traveled to hundreds of countries before she moved to Spain. Again, we add the had before our base form of the verb. When we're looking at perfect tense of the present, it's an action that has occurred at an unspecific time in the past. We can add a have or a has. So this is when we're looking at subject-verb agreement, and we need to know which one is the best choice. So for this example, Julie has traveled to hundreds of countries looking for a place to live. And that's can be a little bit challenging, but if you can kind of learn, you'll be able to understand that whether to have or has after you've practiced plenty. When we're looking at the continuous tense, we're looking at an ongoing action that is occurring right now. So we're going to add am, is, or are, and it's happening currently. So I am talking to Benjamin, Benjamin is talking to me, or the students are talking to Benjamin are some examples. So this is to kind of review again. These are some of the examples of what we kind of went over. So Then we're going to look at subject-verb agreement. So our goal is to make the number of things in your subject match with the number in your predicate or the verb aspect, the base form. And this is important because, like, if you were eating pasta, you don't want to use your fingers, you want to have good etiquette, so you're going to use a fork. Same thing goes with verbs. People are still going to understand you if you use the wrong verb conjugation, but it's better etiquette to make it sound better by making the right correct verb conjugation. So to do this, we always need to look at the subject and then ask if is it singular or plural, and if it is singular, it usually results in another S. For example, her doctor is singular subject, this is the subject base, and says will end in an S to get some rest. Her doctor says to get some rest. If her parents say to get some rest, now the base form of the subject is ending in S, that means say does not have an S at the end. So that's why this is important. These are some practice we'd go over if I was going over with students, but for the sake of time, we'll be stopping here.